Okay. So you've talked about, in your dissertation and in your discussion, you mentioned the issues around different treatments of black women versus white women when it came to marriage, and other instances where there's like a clear black-white hierarchy in the minds of scholars. You've also been very clear that in general, the Quran doesn't necessarily promote like social egalitarianism, like you talk about slavery as a a legal institution. How do we differentiate from what's the difference between the black-white sort of race hierarchies that some of the scholars seem to have, and then the actual sort of social institutions that may be legitimate in the Quran?
Yeah, there's a difference between social hierarchy and moral hierarchy, or spiritual hierarchy, I guess you would say. Well, those are three: moral, spiritual. There are spiritual hierarchies as well. And the Quran confirms that. تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. They're messengers. Some messengers are better than messengers. I mean, some of the prophets are more superior than others. That the prophets are better than we are. That their faith is perfect compared to anyone else's. It's like some of the theologians would say that don't say imani misla imani Jibril, that my faith is equal to the faith of Gabriel. You could say imani ka imani Jibril, rather my faith is like the faith of Jibril. That meaning that we believe in the same things. His faith is he's more certain in his faith. So there are spiritual hierarchies. But I'm focused on the two: social hierarchy and moral hierarchy. Like moral hierarchy, what I mean by that is this idea that Allah or God, He prefers certain people over others simply because of who they are or the way that they look, right? Because, so men are better than women because he's a man, right? Yes, we hear most of the time, often hear the opposite, but, so that in itself is a problem, right? And this is completely unfounded in our tradition, this idea that a man is automatically better than the woman in the sight of God, right? In the sight of God, simply because he's a man, right? Even though there's some exegetes who have attempted to make those kind of arguments, and it's some things there in our tradition, unfortunately. But the Quran, in akramakum inda Allah atqakum, the actual verse, one of the verses that Yusuf had recited, the most honorable of you, the most noble of you in the sight of God are the ones with the most taqwa, most piety, and that could be a man or a woman. So moral hierarchies, no, there's no moral hierarchy between man and woman at all. Social hierarchy, Islam reinforces a certain degree of social hierarchy, and so I think, in a sense, in the family, the man has greater responsibility, or the man is the shepherd of the family. Right, that this is among the prophetic teachings, the Quranic teaching, الرجال قوامون على النساء, that men are the caretakers of women. There is there is that in the Quran, is in the Sunnah, it does exist. That parents are over their children, right? It's not the opposite, children over their parents. No, there's some degree, the governors over the governed, right? So there is social hierarchy, but I think the problem, the challenge that we have today is with trying to differentiate or trying to avoid equating social hierarchy with moral hierarchy, right? You get me? You follow me? So I think that's the problem, that people think, okay, because I'm in charge or I'm responsible, you should think about it like that. I'm responsible, meaning that as opposed to I'm in charge. You're responsible, right? Meaning that you're going to get yourself in trouble, right? If you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, right? That it means that God thinks I'm better, right? On a spiritual, moral level, right? That God values me more spiritually. So it means that when I go to heaven, I'm going to be there in the penthouse, and the woman's going to be on the first floor. No, so it's unfortunate that there is that idea that a lot of people have, and even some Muslims make this mistake to think that way. I remember growing up and being with some older brothers, and I remember brother, he said to me one time, he said, I don't believe a woman can ever be as good as a man or better than the man. You know, and his rationalization was, you know, because they don't pray half of the time, they don't fast half of the time, they can't pray as much as we can. Well, really, they can, because my wife, she prays a whole lot more than I do. So fast a whole lot more than I do. So, but again, it's a problem in the minds of a lot of people. You know, so this confusion between moral and social hierarchy. Yeah. So being in a position, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He chooses you for a position because He gave you certain natural tools or natural advantages, I guess you would say, that makes you the most fit person to do that, right? Right, you know, so, and of course, especially in the old days, it's like, listen, you know, he's faster, men are faster, you know, they're stronger, more aerodynamic, right? You know, so, okay, you go, you hunt, you take care, you defend, right? So God gave you some tools, and you protect the woman, right? But that doesn't make her not loved by God, or you more loved by God. You see, you know, that you have responsibility, she has the responsibility too. If she fulfills the responsibility and you don't, she's better than you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's going to reward her and not reward you. You see, so that is, I think, at the root of a lot of our confusion in this time, is confusing those two things.